Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. Today, we're going to be getting back into our coding, and hopefully, we're going to fix a structural problem that I uncovered. Hey there, James. Yep. I think we've identified the issue. Um, Bear in mind there are some USB issues with the PC at the moment, so hopefully nothing else will go haywire. But I've got a faulty cable somewhere. Uh, Hopefully that won't show itself. Let's check in with kitties before we get too much further in. We have Ember up in the cat tree. She's sulking because she had one of her little death razors trimmed and she didn't like it. On the bed, we have Mason. You can see part of Sammy over on the shelf. She's shifting around now. Sherbet was in the play area, kind of chilling out there a moment. And Sky is partially on the camera that Ember normally is. Sherbet was laying with him until recently. That's why Sky is propped how he is. Molly's over getting a snack with Sherbet right now. So we'll go right there for the time being. Shelf. Go shelf. Oh. Okay, this is gonna mess things up a moment. Bear with me. Okay. Yes, that's working. I forgot to get the screen relayed again. As part of the debugging process, that was not enabled. Okay, so the problem that we have is kind of fundamental at the moment. It's not insurmountable, but it's interesting. So, one of the things that we did initially, or at least up until recently, we had the collision manager in check collisions running a shader. That meant that the entirety of Walker, you are the first in the tall format, the second to speak in the stream. But welcome nonetheless. So we were doing check collision here, and the entirety of the collision check happened here, which allowed it to work, mostly. But when we started doing the solution to allow the explosions to visually linger despite having been removed, we ran into a problem that we fixed by by changing the lifespan timers to have a persist state, that the lifespan was over, but the entity was now set into a sort of disabled state. So it would no longer collide. We set its category to nothing. And nothing collides with nothing. Hey there, Letitia. Welcome. So what would happen is that we do this, and immediately the explosion, its lifespan ends right here. So its category gets set to nothing. Subsequently, the shader says, okay, I'm going to check the collisions with that. It's nothing, so no collisions. Under the new model, I noticed it more readily because when you're using Godot physics objects, well, I will likely forget and refer to you by your screen handle. But welcome nonetheless. you are free to use whatever screen handles you like. Just bear in mind that is how I will see your messages come in, and that is the fastest way that is how I will generally recognize you. Cat passing through. So yeah, it's effectively the collision check happens after the entity has ceased to have a colliding category, which means it doesn't collide anymore. In the shader case, we could solve that by moving the collision check higher in the steps here. Does it collide? It becomes a movement, and then at the top of the next frame, you check for collisions and then apply that and loop that way. We could do that with the shader model, but we can't do that with the other model. And the reason being, when you're using Godot physics objects, Godot physics checks happen after physics process is completely done running. So after all of the code handlers for physics in your program run, then it does the full physics calculation, with the assumption being in physics process you're moving things around, causing their direction to change, that kind of stuff, keyboard input. And then we do the check, and that's when all of the collision events are going to pop up. Well, if anywhere within physics process I change the category, the collisions aren't going to register. So to solve that, we need the change of category to happen after I tally the initial collisions. So how do we do that? We do that by adding a new method here. So let's go and get the actual collision manager interface. I like to think I'm at least clever, Letitia. I don't know if I'd say, smart, but I definitely say I'm clever. I would often refer to that when I'm talking about other developers that I've worked with is clever. A clever solution is not necessarily a good one. Okay, Entity Manager. Here's our interface for the Entity Manager. These are the two relevant ones, add and remove entity. The Entity Manager is responsible for keeping track of all the stuff. Let me show you the stuff. Okay. Testing UI here, so part of it's clipping off the top here. But let's let it all fire so that you can see them. We'll put a bunch of them into play. So every yarn ball, every little clockwork mouse, every one of these explosions, each of those are an entity. The Entity Manager is responsible for tracking them and having them update. It doesn't actually create them, other things create them, but even if they're created, they don't function unless the Entity Manager has them. This is the thing that will raise the events to say there's a new one, and it's the thing that will trigger the events to say one has gone away. It's the thing to tell all of them to do what they need to do and to react to messages that they get. So if the Entity Manager doesn't have it, it might as well not exist. So yeah. I need to figure out where we're using that. Oh, that's right. This is a universal. What's my Zero Pocket? What's my least favorite part of coding? Staring blankly into the middle distance to try to determine why 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. That's the worst part of coding. I heard somebody refer to it as you can consider all forms of programming effectively magical incantations, and you are learning what each of them supposedly does. And that hopefully they do what you think they do. But it is all... It's learning a language that nobody actually speaks. It is languages that are written down, you know, your Sanskrit, that kind of thing. There are instructions that say what it's supposed to do, and you know what it's supposed to do. But it might do something different, and that can be where things get tricky. We are looking at, we are working through one of those circumstances right now, where you think it does one thing, but it might do it a little differently than you thought, and that can require re-architecting. One of my favorite programming stories that I ran into was a place in the code where there was a comment. I have that right here. So these green text lines are comments. They're just meant to be informative. You know, where you write notes to yourself. But when you make the game run, you know, the game that you install on Steam, these lines that are comments at best are lines that say do nothing. They're no-op lines. Often they are just removed entirely, so there's not even a line there. But there was a line of code above it that did a thing. It was a meaningless thing that it did, but it did a thing. If you removed the comment, it made it crash. But if the comment was there, it was fine. That's not supposed to be a thing. That should never cause a problem, but it did. It caused a big problem. So if I recall, we changed that comment to be don't ever remove this comment kind of thing. Stuff can get weird. There are a lot of methods you can use to mitigate that, to make it less likely to happen. But things can get weird, and that's where being a programmer comes in, is solving that. Beverage. Okay. But entity manager interface. All right. So what happens when we add an entity, you call add entity and you give it the entity. When you call remove, you tell it get rid of this one that we have here. You can ask to get one. When we call update, all of the entities get told, hey, time has passed. Do the stuff. Once we've told all of the entities to update and we've done all of the things that affect the entities, we do the end step, which is kind of clean up. Finish up anything that you were doing. Kind of self-explanatory. Get random entity by category is sort of a utility. It's get me one of the monsters, get me one of the bullets, that kind of thing. Raise entity added is... This is a function that exists for all entity managers, in that when an entity is added, after this takes effect, let's say, I tell everybody that cares there's a new entity. And a lot of things care that there's a new entity. What we're going to add is a method for transforming entities. So when those little explosions go off, let me show that. Hey there, good night. Yeah, Parakeet, that can be a big part of it. And hello, good night. Hello, welcome. The little splash here, the explosion in the center, that only exists for a single frame, a fraction of a second. But we want it to complete its animation. We want the explosion to happen, but we only want it to hit things for a moment. Good night, my name is newtmechanist. Well, my name is Newt. Mechanist is a title. Or a profession, if you were. It's an anachronistic title, but I think it sounds neat. So we change the category of the explosion to nothing. We change it to 0 once that single frame has happened, so that then no collisions happen. But the way that we're doing it is causing the bug that we're seeing. So we're going to fix that, which is going to cause the compiler to throw a fit in a moment, but we will rapidly fix it. For those that are interested, mechanist is a term that is no longer used, an anachronistic term, for a person that works with machines or robots or similar things. Mechanisms. Artificer does. Artificer definitely lives on. Okay, so we're going to change the entity category to uint category. Uint, not universal tag number. I don't even know what that is. It is. Oh, okay. I was not aware of that, James. Hey there, RC. Welcome. Folks, if you notice that I seem to be talking to somebody that you can't see in chat, there are 3 streams going right now. There's Twitch and 2 YouTube streams. There is one YouTube stream for the tall format and one for the widescreen format. And Twitch is in the widescreen format, so feel free to watch on whatever platform that is best for you. Good night. We are making a game. We're making a sort of a mashup between Vampire Survivors and Noita, in that we have a game in which swarms of monsters will approach from pretty much all sides. Oh, wait. Let me just oh. There we go. So things will come in from the sides, weapons fire out from your character or are caused to fire out from your character. You hit the things, you make them go away. If they hit you, you take damage until you go away. The Noita aspect is the weaponry building, so I can say if the yarn ball hits something, it will emit 5 of the mice and the yarn ball moves in a spiral pattern. So these little circles there are the yarn balls. If they strike something, they have to strike. Yeah, there we go. So they hit something, it splits into these mice. The mice home in on things. so on and so forth. It's that ability to kind of socket in modifiers that is going to be the key gameplay element. Instead of picking a power-up that says, level up the yarn ball by 1, you pick a power-up that says, make it go faster and make it home in, that kind of thing. To comment this because that's an abstract method, and abstract methods must be implemented or else it won't compile. Which means we will need to handle that in both of these. I don't want to leave broken ones behind. I do have some vestigial code laying around. I will eventually rip them out, but especially the shader one I don't want to rip out, both because it might be useful for reference and because I put a lot of work into it for now, and I don't want to lose it for now. Oh, that's right. The shader doesn't do it. It's the entity manager at the moment, and we only have one of those, so that's useful. All right, let's see here. Where did I put that, just for consistency? Should have an add entity. There we go. Click, override, void, change, entity, category. So change entity category, this is a method that we described in the interface. We're going to implement it here. The goal of this one is to handle the entity category change. Previously, we were handling that with this, an event that the entity itself would raise. And we're still going to do that, but the difference will be you won't change it on the entity itself. Let's find that. So we have a get set on the category. Really should just be a getter, but could have an internal variable for it, Update entity category. So we don't want this anymore. We don't want the entity to be the one that applies this. The entity can raise the event and say, my category has been changed. We define that up here, entity category changed event. So this is primarily used by the collision management code to detect when you should change what a thing collides with. So the entity will still raise this event, but it will be the entity manager that initiates the process, and it will only do that at the top of the update step. So this is going to go away, which we will need to account for. The how is the question. How do we want to handle this? Hey there, Astral Pug. Welcome. Beverage. Also need to change this. This should be remove. We will get that set up here. I use get for source control, kind of the standard. It is useful to have that, both because it prevents me from losing something if there's a crash or similar, but it also helps me like undo things or find where I may have broken it. Okay. So right now we're subscribing to the category change of an entity, but we want to handle the change ourselves. So we're going to go up here where we have entities to add, entities to remove. So we're going to have this one's going to be a dictionary. Of entity to uint. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is anytime a category change is requested, we are going to slot it into this. If it is already there, we're going to replace it. So an entity can only have one category change in waiting. If two things want to change its category, last in wins. Latest update. Could this lead to some issues? Yes, but I feel like if there are multiple category changes, then they would happen sequentially anyway. And there's no need to hammer through them during the update step. Gameplay-wise, it should not be instantaneously affected. Okay, so we're going to say category changes. Say we're going to preload them. This is way more than we need to worry about. But by pre-allocating the maximum amount of space for entities, then we don't have to resize them. It just means that when the game starts up, there's effectively unused space hanging around. Not really a big deal. So in our change an entity category. So first we're going to check if it's there. If this contains entity contains key. So if we've already added it there, then we're going to remove it. And then we are going to add it in. Ideally, you don't have too many safety checks like this, but I get paranoid. Input validation. Since this is a uint, it's going to be technically a valid category. So it has to be a positive number. Categories are only positive numbers. Some of the categories will be meaningless. If you go past, like, 8 or something like that, there aren't any categories that are covered by that. The category is a bit field technically. Well, the category is translated into a bit field. So, 1, 2, 4, 8, that kind of thing, and combinations thereof, each each of those bits meaning something. With the category being a single one of those to say this is an enemy kind of thing. And then we translate that into the collision mask that represents what it hits. So, bullets run into enemies. By saying the category corresponds to bullet, we can translate that out to say, okay, then the mask is enemies. Okay. So we've added that into the collection there. Then on our update call, let's just jump to it. A lot of this, folks, is stream of consciousness as I code, just saying what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. If you don't understand, that's fine. We're all learning together. If you have any questions, just ask. We can... it doesn't bother me to slow down to chat. Hey there, Andre. Welcome. Beverage. Okay, where is it? Thought I called it update. Yeah, update. Okay, so we're removing any entities that don't need to be there anymore. After we've removed them, for each value pair in entity category changes. Unit, int. They're very different things. How are you doing, Andre? Okay, for each of those, if it's key. Always nice, always nice. Oh, key. It is key. ID. Okay, so if it's there, then we're going to update the category. Okay. So first we go through and we remove all the entities that need to be removed. Then we're going to go through and we're going to transform all the entities that need to be transformed. We're not calling it transform because that means a thing when it comes to space. That means move it, Move it, spin it, twist it. Rotate it. But we're going to go through and we're going to change all of the categories. Then we're going to add new ones. So we clear them, we check and see if they're still there, and if they are, we call update entity category. Then for each of them, we tell them time passed. What this is going to let us do is in the last frame, we say, hey, explosion, your time, you have been around for a frame now. You are not going to be an entity anymore. So we queue up a category change. The explosion continues to be an explosion for the rest of that that time frame, that slice of time. And then at the start of the next one, we change its category. So any subsequent collisions won't happen. It's not perfect. We may need to add another layer to that, but it should cover our current use case. And hey there, Rando. Hey, how you doing? Sammy is definitely comfy there. Let's check in with the others real quick. As people are flowing through. Let's see. Ember is having a little bit of a bath up in the cat tree. Sky and Molly are having a shared bath there. Mason's still snoozing on the tree. Sherbet in the little box in the play area, and Sammy on the heating pad. We've got all of them visible. All 6 are visible. Okay. So we've got that in there. Let's get that recorded. So entity manager, base manager, those have now changed. So we add the abstract method, we implement the abstract method. Do I live at the pet store? I do not. Astropug, I try to make it my business not to walk by adoption centers for cats. Because of the feels. Molly in particular, the not the black and white fluffy one who's laying on top of the other, the little kind of stripy backed one there. Molly was adopted because she and her brother were in the same little box up for adoption, and somebody just adopted the brother. And I was big sad. Okay, so now we've added a method in the entity manager for changing the categories. Then we're going to go into the entity currently, where we have update entity category. There are 2 places that reference it. So now the base entity manager, but more notably, this one. We don't want to call that here. We are going to call services entity manager update change entity category, and this is going to be entity and not set. I will eventually call that something else, but effectively we're de-setting that. Okay. So then the next time this comes through, what will happen for the explosion is this will trigger. Time passed will happen. We're going to see that our time limit is going to increment. Lifespan hasn't ended yet. We get to the end step. Time passed will exceed lifespan. Lifespan of an explosion is 0. We will set the category, and we'll mark that lifespan has ended. And this won't be true yet. Persistence time on an explosion currently is 1 second to let the animation fully play out. During persist time, it doesn't... No. It still exists, but it doesn't collide or interact with anything. This is where we might need a little bit of an extra step to ensure that no other logic fires during that time. But currently it means that it interacts with nothing. So we loop back around, we get our next time passed message. We increment all that. This doesn't matter anymore. This is the relevant thing because we're going to eat the message. This is what may make it so that we don't need to worry about anything further, is if the lifespan is at the beginning of the handling chain, the time passed message won't go any further, so no handling will happen. Sherbet is approaching and seems to want to go through there, but there are now 2 cats in the way. Okay. So then we can go up into the entity manager, and we have an on event here. Hello, Walker. Hello. Where is that? On entity category changed. I could have just changed the name of this, but it's relevant that I'm doing it this way. I promise. Track of this. Okay, so we have change entity category, then at during our update loop when we're doing this. So we have update entity category. This is us telling the entity what value it should be. This is going to be our entity, and then so this is make the entity whatever its category was. Hello, RL. Okay, need to do this a little bit differently. That's not right yet. Wrong one. So this is where we actually call it. Okay. That back. Thinking on the fly here. We still need that. Okay. We still need to listen for this event. Entity internal. Let's make a method for that. Entity. If so, what I'm doing here, we're making a wrapper function for setting all of the events on an entity, so I don't lose track of them. Yeah, we'll make that explicit. So what happens here is it's kind of a daisy chain of events. Something tells the entity manager to change the category on an entity. The entity manager puts that change in line, and we'll get to it when it gets to the next time we do an entity update. When we get to that moment, we tell the entity update your category. When the entity does that, we'll call this method. And the entity manager will update accordingly. If the entity, for whatever reason, doesn't change its category when we tell it to, then an update won't happen. This could be because the categories are the same. We could remove that event, any number of things. But this will only happen. This event only gets called if the entity relays it and says, I changed this. Okay. This gets called. So now we're going to look for this. References. Set the events, we say the entity, and we say false. I don't know if I like that naming, but I feel like it's a valid assumption that if attach is true, then if is that you're attaching, and if attach is false, you are detaching. Can that generate errors? Yes, it can. Call it twice in a row. In either case, it doesn't like it. Thank Thanks for swinging through, Andre. All right. Did I break it? Okay, stuff is still happening. The explosions aren't lingering any longer than they're supposed to. The explosions are knocking out enemies. Be a little hard to tell, but we can verify that further and say when the explosion hits something, it emits yarn balls. When a yarn ball hits something, it emits mice. Yep, the explosion's definitely hitting stuff. Okay. So I am going to change the graphic for the explosion. Part of our changes that we have been making was to allow us to use particles instead of only sprites. Right now, everything is a well, it's a sprite. It's a pixelated texture. The thing in the center is 32 by 32. We will be updating the background. I want to change the background from the shader solution that we were using. While it was cool, I want to change it to something a little simpler. Partly because I want to leverage Godot's built-in collision handling for a tile map, so that I can have world collision. We'll see how that plays out, but in any event, that gives us the change that we needed. Now, in the collision handling, nothing has changed there. And in the core gameplay loop, nothing has actually changed. We still have everything happening when it is supposed to. So what I did there, it's half cut off because I have too many of these rows right now. But this is the explosion. It says when the explosion hits something, that's this little line into a wall icon. When it hits something, the next weapon is fired from the position of the thing that hit something. The yarn ball is going to move in a spiral. It normally doesn't spiral. It's going to as a result of this icon being added. And every second that the yarn ball is moving, it is going to emit the wind-up mouse. So right now, you just see the explosions firing. But as soon as an explosion hits a blob there, we emit the yarn ball. Now, the yarn ball is going to behave a little strangely right now because of the way the bounce logic works. We do need to check on this further. So what we'll do is we're going to open this up and we're going to change the order. Get rid of the wind-up mouse as well. we're just going to be testing explosions right now. I don't have the logic wired in just yet to make it so you can move the projectiles. So that, we change it. We start up. Okay, so right now, we are now going to change it so the yarn ball will hit, bounce, and then the second hit should create an explosion. Yep. I did update the bouncing logic to work a little bit better. I changed it from using a... I changed the way that I calculated the bounce vector. Before, it relied on the movement vector of both of them. Now it is... it takes the movement of the yarn ball and it compares that to the position between the two of them. So if the yarn ball is, moving left to right and it hits the top of the blob, then it's going to deflect off based on that interaction, that it is above the blob when it hit it, as opposed to it really caring that the blob was moving to the right. Could we have a physics model where that's relevant? Yes. You could have that would create a spin to it. We're not doing that just yet. But yeah, I mean, we can make this super fiddly. So, it emits explosions constantly. It also emits one when it blows up. Here, let's let this get out of control. I don't know how much of it was 4.4 and how much of it was just we learned a better way to do this. But aside from the number of nodes being created simultaneously here causing a bit of a hitch, our frames per second is real good. We've got 1,500 objects. We're getting over 100 frames per second. And we could clean up a bit of this by creating a tiny offset in the timing of each one of the ticks. So instead of them all going on the exact same second, all of them saying, 1 second passes, so now all of them are doing that, we could add a little bit of variation that sometimes they won't all fire at the exact same moment. From a visual perspective, you'll probably be able to notice that, but it will be slight. How about we do that now? Okay, there we go. So, to change that, we have seen what I planned to do today, so everything else is probably going to be me meandering around on a whim to change things as I think of them. If I were more professional about this, I would have a dev plan and explicit targets for each evening that we would accomplish before doing further planning and testing. We're not doing it that way. This is seat of the pants. We kind of do whatever I think of doing at the time. Stuff is suggested, I find bugs, that kind of thing. It's a solo operation. We're winging it. Where did I put this? So, game should be entity, should be behaviors, should be multipliers, and we're going to say periodic weapon entity multiplier. Hello again, good night, and hey there, Tess. Pretty much. When we're out of pre-alpha, we'll start to think about explicit steps, to put on to put on a backlog to work through. Okay, so time passed. Time passed only matters when it exceeds frequency. When this comes into existence, this is us copying one. There's always a copy. So we could have up to 1/10 of a second, let's say up to 1/5 of a second, that it's going to vary. So we could have so we're going to reduce time passed. This is going to potentially increase the amount of time it takes by upwards of 1/5 of a second to fire. We could vary this further, but we'll see. It's equal to I already have that in services done. Let's look for random. Let's look for random, not yandom. Entity manager has it. Let's add that to services. This is that seat of the pants element. All right, let's see. Game. Core. Services. All right. Let's look at our entity manager. Look at our base entity manager. Okay. So if we go into services, and now we have a random being set up. As soon as the game comes into existence, we have random. We could have logic in services to reseed random. For now, we're not gonna. It says when the game starts up, this is the random seed. That could still work, you know. Welcome back, Letitia. So instead of random here, we're going to remove you. It's going to pitch a fit somewhere. Should have broken down somewhere. There we go. There should be a method that broke from that. Okay. That's why. Integer. So. Should work. Oh. Okay. If okay. So the primary thing that we were doing was changing over to the C# randomizer so that we have a single place that we're setting up the random number generator. So that we can, one, control that thing from a central location. Let's get that updated here, actually. That in there. Now we go into our periodic weapon there, and minus services dot random next double. Okay, so this is from 0 to 1. Then we're going to multiply that times 0.4. Yes. Then minus 0.2. What this will do is this is going to create a number between from negative 0.2 to positive 0.2. And we are going to subtract that from time past. We could also just say plus equals. This is same thing. But what this does is it makes it so that it might happen a little bit faster. It might happen a little bit slower. Let's see it in action. Also see if we broke it. Ew. Okay. Have it really go out of control here. See if we get a better... So you see there's kind of a ripple going on instead of the big lurch. So we don't have one big, like, choke moment. Instead, there will be sort of a rapid lag as they go. So you can see little, like, streamers of them going off. And while this isn't as precise, I still kind of like this better. If we remove that, we'll get a more consistent view of it happening. So you can see it's slowing down as that happens there. We're getting a more accurate what the frames per second is because we have more chances to update that. So it's a little cut off by the channel information, which I need to update. I'm not really using some of those. But the lower number, the bottom number, is the number of things, the number of blobs and yarn balls and explosions. And the upper number is the frames per second. So we've got about, let's say 15 to 1600 things, and we're operating from, let's say, 50 to 80 frames a second. That's pretty good. Let's make it weirder. Make them spin. So they now, like, spiral as they move along. So we've got more explosion coverage. Let's make them track an enemy. And let's make them spiral off of that point. Isn't that pretty? Yeah. A little better. It's a little better now. Now, if we expand that out to, let's say, half a second. Let's do that. So if we say vary by a second, subtract half a second. Takes it a little bit to shut down fully because there's a whole lot of stuff that was happening in the background there. So then we're going to make a bunch of them. That's very consistent. That is very consistent. I would say this is more accurate. We're getting about 30 frames a second. Because we're having more time, we're having fewer things generated per physics frame. So there's more time during the graphical updates to handle these. I don't know if we're getting a leak here or if it's just by coincidence. Yeah, when we're paused, you can really see it. So, like to the left here, we have this kind of scrolling patch of them. You can see the sequence that the explosions fired in. That's because the explosions are not ceasing to be yet. Time is frozen, but the sprites continue to exist and animate. Anywho. Maximum coverage. Ooh, random rotation. Okay, let's try that. That should actually be easy enough. Yeah. Hey there, Pandora. Welcome back. Okay, how are we going to accomplish that? It's only going to be a very small amount. We should be able to accomplish that. Data folders. We're working on the game right now, Pandora. We still got a ways to go, but we've done a lot. Okay. Where's the... Look at the yarn ball. No, we want a random direction. So we're going to look for movement random direction in here. Fixed random. Needs quotes, because that's a string. It is. The game is going to be much more of like a bullet heaven. Fixed random, and then we need to change the sprite information, the texture information. Take to face is true. Eyes are getting a bit wonky. And then... there we go. I think we can actually do a little better than that, but... no, that should actually work, because unless it's... if I were to make multiple explosions spawn at once, they would share the direction. But what's happening is every time an explosion spawns, it generates a random direction, and the texture is rotated to face that direction. So we get slight variations. If we reduce the number of explosions in play, you'll see it, I think, a little better. Now let's make sure the coverage is up there. Very nice, very nice. Let's add a little bit of a random direction, and we add some more. There we go. Yeah. Looking good. I like it. So this is, I mean, there's less than 200 things in existence right now, and we get absurd frames per second. There's no performance issues here. If we add even more entities in, so now we've got about 500 things in existence. Still way more frames than we need. We still need to solve the exponential multiplication problem here. Because right now we're producing 27 things. Each yarn ball splits into 3. Each one of those splits into 3. Each one of those splits into 3. So we've got 27. As soon as we split into 3 again and we get to 81, the performance is going to start tanking. And the number of them is going to get really high. This is not insurmountable, but right now we're looking at, 15 frames a second, being generous. It's probably more like 10 on average, but no, less than that. But now we've got about 1,500 things. Now this is Calamity Case. This is, if you have this, you win. If you have this many things in play, it is very likely that you can't lose at that stage. Because, I think there's like 2 blobs spawning a second, and they can't even get on the screen for more than a little bit there. Good point, Laura. Good point. I wonder how many. Let's just for giggles. Okay, this was 2 every half second. So what about 10? I need to pay attention to... We are gonna have to check we're gonna have to check memory consumption here, because I do have a concern about how long it took to end that. Let's run it through Godot. Sometimes this can catch errors that you can't see on the C# side. C# is ultimately running it through Godot, but okay. 20 blobs a second. Thanks for swinging through, Pandora. So 81 projectiles a second, they spin. There's a little bit of a random direction to them. Every about second, they fire an explosion. After 5 seconds, all of the blobs begin spawning. So we should get a lot more entities as well. Well, more entities. We've added another 20 a second, which is 25% more a second. Ish. But yeah, there are ways to address this. We can further address it with, this is all testing stuff that we're doing, the entirety of how enemies and all of that works is up in the air. Behaviors, collision. Enemies have 10 hit points. I think it'll make most of the bullets have 10 hit points too, but let's go. 81 things a second, spiral, random direction, 1 explosion per second. If this block up here changes, that means an enemy has reached the center. They definitely make it further. But what Lore has mentioned is exactly what would be happening over time is more and nastier opponents would be showing up. Enemies that have to get hit multiple times before they go away. And part of the goal of designing how the power-ups work and what kind of power-ups get put together is to minimize the ease of getting to this position while still allowing you to get to this position. Like, it should not be easy to go completely out of control and break the game, but it should be possible to go out of control and break the game. That should be a thing that you can foresee coming and move towards. And it's finding the sweet spot in there. That's in the beta testing era, I believe, would be what power-ups and fine-tuning how some of the power-ups work. But yeah. Let's check something real quick here. Yeah, we are going to wrap up a bit early today. I need to put in an order for some new either I need to find an extra cable or put in an order for a new cable to fix some hardware. But we accomplished our goal and a little bit more here. I like the rotation on the explosions. We accomplished that by making it so their center is actually off a little bit, which adds even more variation. Yeah, the fact that it just froze and crashed there, I think there's a memory leak. Let me see. Well, now I just want to check. We've got a little bit of time yet. We're going to look at our performance. Well, we may have identified what we'll be fixing next time. GPU is fine, CPU is fine. And I didn't see an error state in Godot at the end. We are keeping the GPU relatively busy. Not at capacity, but the logic that we've shifted to is less GPU intensive. This is showing an upward trend. It's very slight, but it should not be climbing. Let's see if we do... I don't think it's climbing. So why did that just end? Oh well. That's Future Newt's problem. Let that jerk deal with it. But yeah. We made some progress today. The goal was to get our to get the explosions working again. So we made category changes, things that make it so that the explosions only collide for the first frame of their existence. We got that working fully again. And we added some nice little cosmetic improvements, some nice performance improvements, a bit of randomization to some of the spawn frequency, and a bit of randomization to the look of the explosions. For things coming up, we are going to be looking at some particle emitters. I want to get that kind of thing in there. Particle emitters will be a good way to visually reflect some of the power-ups. That is something that we saw a lot in Noida. If you added some of the power-ups, you would get like trails on the projectiles to indicate that they had a buff to them. I think one of the most notable ones is if you had the kind of all explosions will now super kill you, like double power thing. Your weapons got a red particle effect on the trail. And there were the cosmetic power-ups like Rainbow Trail and that kind of thing. But having that in there to add a little bit more visual flair will be nice. Then more power-ups. I do want to figure out a way to make it so that the spawning logic can stack. Or find ways to condense the exponential spawning that we were seeing. That, for example, if you got split into 3, that it would turn into split into 5 instead of 2 split into 3s. Effectively, those are both add 2 projectiles kind of things, you know? That would be one way to address it. Another would just be being very cognizant of what we're adding and add things like forced delays on projectile multipliers so that there is always a tangible cost to using them. But we'll have to see. We will have to see. If you like what you saw and would like to see more, folks, remember to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. It'll help me improve the channel. It will help the channel grow. If you want to financially support the channel, you can do so through channel memberships, bits, Patreon, coffee, all kinds of good stuff. There are links in the link tree as well as the normal spots on the platform that you're viewing through. With all of that said, I hope the rest of your day is good, and I will see you next time.